True crime is a massive entertainment genre. There are thousands of books, documentaries, and podcasts dedicated to the very real, very disturbing things human beings are capable of.
Lawyers often play an important role in these stories, whether they stay behind the scenes or steal the spotlight with arguments that rhyme.
I know Allie and I are probably the biggest true crime fans of this group. Joe and Andy, where do you stand?
Yeah, it's not really my thing. I can't think of a single true crime story that I've listened to, but I'll be excited to see what you guys come up with for today.
Yeah, you could say that I'm like moderately interested. I still have not listened to Serial. I've yet to watch Tiger King, but I did watch the Stephen Avery one, whatever it's called, and
Making a Murderer.
Sure, okay. Sure, okay. And that staircase owl attack one.
What? Owl attack? How have I never heard of this?
Oh, man, you've never... Oh, yeah, the staircase. It's pretty sweet. I'll explain in a minute.
Okay, yeah, we'll finish up the intro and then we'll get to that. Thank you all for joining us on this genre-bending episode of Find Laws, Don't Judge Me. Today we're talking about lawyers in true crime, the nation's first tabloid murder trial, and a recent 7th Circuit case with an Agatha Christie-style twist. Welcome to Find Laws, Don't Judge Me, the podcast about the real life of lawyering. I'm Laura Temmie, and I'm joined by Allie Marshall.
Oh, hi.
Wow, are you sleeping over there? Jeez.
No.
I thought you were
here.
so excited about this true crime episode.
I am. I'm looking up one of my shows that I love.
All right, let's see who else we have here. Joe Fabush.
Hey, everybody. I still can't get over Allie's introduction. I love how she's watching true crime while working.
I'm not watching it. I was looking up facts about it.
Whatever.
I don't think I believe you. And finally, Andy Leonati.
Hey, so the staircase is about this.
Yes, tell me about the
He's
staircase.
an author who his wife was murdered. She was found at the bottom of a staircase with like big like head lacerations in the back of her head, and he was found guilty of her murder. And then it also turns out that like his next door neighbor, when he was stationed in Germany like 30 years prior, also died under the same like mysterious circumstances. But he's now out of jail because the like forensic scientist head BSer, surprise, surprise, lied about like all of like the blood splatter stuff that like I've always had my doubts about. And so he like took an Alford plea to like involuntary manslaughter instead, and he's out now. But like one of the alternative theories for like why she died was that she was like walking into her house. It was late at night, and she got attacked by an owl, which like clawed up the back of her head. Then
my God.
she went inside, and then she was going up the stairs to like go to the bathroom and like, you know, tend to her wounds, and she got like woozy and just fell backwards down the stairs, and that's why she fell downstairs, had big head lacerations, and her husband named Michael Peterson, who for the record I think is extremely guilty. But
yeah. Oh yeah.
What a hot take. You don't think it was the owl? Oh my God, that is unbelievable. I have actually never heard of that case, but
it's called The Staircase. It's on Netflix, and it is wild.
I totally think the owl did it. Have you ever seen an owl?
I think that's what we call throwing spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks.
I mean, stranger things have happened.
Have they?
Michael Peterson, I believe you. You don't need to come for us. I 100% buy that story.
Okay, well, I don't have anything quite that. There are no owls in the story that I'm about to tell you, but I am very excited to share this story with all of you. So if you would all indulge me for a few minutes, I'd like to fulfill my dream of hosting a true crime podcast. Feel free to react with shock and awe if you'd like.
I guess.
Does one of us have to die for this to happen? Are you going to solve our murders?
I
murder.
can't tell you that yet.
I nominate Allie.
It's been a rough week.
Yes, I've kept this episode very under wraps from everyone else, and now it turns out that I'm actually going to murder one of you and then solve it. I don't know. That doesn't make any sense. Anyway,
Feels like cheating.
it's the perfect crime. So I've often heard people ask, why is true crime having such a moment right now? Why is this the entertainment that people are looking for? And in my opinion, the answer is they always have. Every 10 years or so, we have a case that seems to reignite the public's interest in the macabre. You know, we've got the prolific serial killers of the 70s and 80s, the O.J. Simpson trial, Casey Anthony.
Guilty.
Yes, we know. We know, Andy. And I think something that people don't often think about is that lawyers are always right there in the middle of it. So take our nation's first murder trial. On December 22nd, 1799, 22-year-old Juliana Elmore Sands, known as Elma to most, left her boarding house in Greenwich Street in New York City at around 8 in the evening, telling her cousin Hope that she was going to elope with her beau, 23-year-old Levi Weeks. Elma had recently moved to New York to work in a millinery and had reportedly begun a relationship with Weeks during the summer of 1799. She came from a respected Quaker family upstate, and Levi Weeks was a carpenter whose brother Ezra was a well-known architect. Although the two tried to keep their relationship a secret, other boarders later testified that they were caught in compromising positions all over the boarding house.
Naughty, naughty.
I know, right? 1799, nothing ever changes. Nothing changes. So when she left the boarding house that night, she told her cousin that she and Weeks were engaged, but when later questioned about it, Weeks claimed he had no idea why Elma would say they were getting married. Weeks reportedly left the boarding house around 7 or 8 that evening to have dinner with his brother's family, returning home later that night. Elma was never seen alive again.
Oh.
There you go. That's what I was looking for. Gosh.
So a Randy tryst turns into...
Indeed. turns into murder.
Murder most foul.
Indeed. So a few days after Elma's disappearance, a young boy found the fur muff she had been seen wearing near the newly constructed Manhattan Well, which was about a 20-minute carriage ride from the boarding house. A couple days later, on January 2nd, the well was searched and Elma's body was recovered. Suspicion quickly fell on Levi Weeks. Yeah, I know.
People were drinking out of that well.
What?
People are drinking out of that well, too.
Oh no.
Oh, I hadn't thought of that. Oh no.
That's
like
really
that.
gross.
Oh, it's like that hotel case in California a few years ago.
Yeah.
The girl who ended up in the water tank on the roof. I need to, I don't know. I need to find different forms of entertainment. This is getting like...
Oh, wait, what are the injuries?
They were pretty inconclusive. Well, and of course, back then the coroner is also a dentist, so it's like it's the injuries were inconclusive. They did think that she had been murdered, but that was really the only conclusion they came to, and that she probably drowned.
She didn't die of gingivitis, so inconclusive.
Like, she appears to be deceased. Like, okay, cool. So suspicion quickly fell on Levi Weeks, who seemingly already knew where she was found when he was brought in to identify the body, as he asked the coroner if she had been pulled from the well. Probably not the smartest thing for him to bring up. It made him look a little bad. Although a couple days before, an article of her clothing had been found there, so it's possible that that's how he knew. But that was something that people latched onto,
Old lusty Levi.
As his friends called him.
Do they have CCTV footage?
In 1799? No,
by
I don't think so.
Walking by the well. Oh, I feel like
Just
this needs to be
casually.
a drunk history reenactment of some kind.
Oh,
I know, right?
Yeah.
I'm kind of surprised that they haven't done this one, to be honest.
Yeah.
So, unsurprisingly, he was soon indicted for murder, and so began the nation's first tabloid murder trial. So the boarding house was run by another cousin of Elma's, Catherine Ring, and her husband Elias, and the Rings were convinced that Weeks had killed Elma. so much so that they began leaking details of the investigation to local reporters and fanning the flames of public opinion against him. So, super professional, you know.
Well, I mean, they
Hey,
want
freedom of the press.
Yeah, well,
But-
and they want to see this guy
That is true.
convicted.
That is true. They wanted justice, and that was something that drew Weeks's legal defense team to him, actually, which I'll get into right now. Weeks's defense team includes some familiar names, especially if you're a musical theater fan. Henry Brockholst Livingston, Aaron Burr, and Alexander Hamilton.
Boo! Yay!
So one thing I asked myself when I was researching this case is, how did a young carpenter manage to procure such prolific attorneys? And as with so many things, it turns out it's all about who you know. Hamilton and Burr were already fierce rivals by this point. Hamilton's political career was on the decline following a sex scandal involving a married woman. And Ezra Weeks actually built Hamilton's manor house in Harlem. So as always, it's always just follow the money. And Burr also had financial ties to Weeks' building projects and had defeated Hamilton's father-in-law in a run for U.S. Senate 8 years earlier. So them working together was probably not the best idea if you really think about it. But the legal community in New York was small at the time, and they both very much believed that Weeks was innocent, so they agreed to team up for this high-profile trial.
I think there's a song in Hamilton about it.
There is. I was
Yep,
just about to bring that up. Yeah, if anyone's keeping track, this is the trial they reference in the song Non-Stop, which is at the end of Act 1 of Hamilton.
Still have not seen it.
I mean, you know, it's
Don't
either your
brag
thing or
about
it's
it.
not. I'm a fan.
It's
but
on Disney.
You know, yeah, you can watch it. You do have
I
to
don't
set
have
aside
Disney.
3 hours for
Oh,
it,
wow.
though. It is very long. But yeah, so if you want to get really nerdy about it, the timeline is a little bit different in real life than it is in the musical, but I'm not going to hold anybody to that.
Laura, I appreciate that you're turning this into a history and politics podcast.
Yeah.
I think you've done
Yeah,
this for
yeah.
my benefit to kind of ease me into the true crime genre. Because you knew that I would just be gone if we just went straight into like a 1972 something or other. So now you got
matters,
Hamilton,
Joe.
now you got Burr.
Right.
Now,
I know.
now I'm interested. I'm engaged. Well done.
Yes, that was my plan all along. Well, I'm a bit of a history nerd, so this part was inevitable. So moving on to the trial, on March 31st, 1800, onlookers packed into New York City Hall to watch the proceedings. A large crowd gathered outside calling for justice, and by this point, pretty much everyone in New York was convinced that Levi Weeks had killed Elma, and they wanted his head. It was intense. At this time, most trials were wrapped up in about a day, but his murder trial dragged on for 40 hours over 2 days. So both days of trial,
Ugh.
they were at the courthouse until 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, both times.
Wow.
So I would say the scheduling these days is just slightly better. The prosecution gave a lengthy opening statement, which included weirdly extended remarks on the legal prowess of the defense team. Like, he spent a lot of time talking about, oh, look how
He was
great
like
the defense
fangirling. the
he
defense
was.
team.
It was very strange, and it's interesting because of the public interest in this trial, it was the first criminal trial to be fully transcribed, and so I read parts of this, and he kind of fangirled over Hamilton and Burr for several minutes, and then the funniest part is then Burr gets up and he wastes no time in poking fun at the prosecution for this, and he starts his opening statement with, "Gentlemen of the jury, the patience with which you have listened to this lengthy and tedious detail of testimony is honorable to your characters." It's just like, ooh, 1800s burn.
Burn. I was just gonna old-timey
It's,
burn.
yeah, it's fun. Yeah, as it turns out, in real life, Burr was a little bit less talk less, smile more than he is in the musical. He definitely clapped back on that one.
Ooh, good one.
Nice.
Thank you.
Nice.
So the prosecution painted a picture of Weeks as a man who had falsely misled a young woman with promises of marriage only to lure her into a trap to kill her. They also posited that Elma might have been pregnant and that Weeks had killed her to avoid a scandal. However, they had zero direct evidence linking Weeks to her death. Meanwhile, the defense called medical experts, which I think one of them was a dentist, so I'm not really sure, it's 1800, we do the best we can. But
Did they have a lot of blood spatter, quote, experts?
No, I don't think so. Well, actually, I'm remembering now that it was the prosecution who called the dentist, and he hadn't actually examined the body. He just saw the body when it was on display during her wake. And he was like, "Oh, I think I saw
man.
strangulation marks on her neck." It's like, what?
Oh my
First of all,
gosh.
you're
That's
a dentist.
awesome.
Like, and
That's
but then
awesome.
meanwhile the defense called the actual coroner and some other medical experts to explain that Elma's body didn't have injuries consistent with being beaten, nor was she pregnant at the time of her death. And they also argued that she may have been depressed and possibly died by suicide, as she had previously threatened to kill herself.
Wait, so she jumped in a well to commit suicide?
People do crazy things, Allie. I
guess. I guess.
How deep was the well?
That I don't know.
She's in New York. There's bridges and water. Like,
I don't know.
Were there bridges over like the Hudson River at that?
There's no bridges then?
I don't.
No
I
bridges?
don't know. I'm not a bridge expert. Damn it.
Probably nothing
Yeah,
like
I
as
don't
high
know.
as the George Washington Bridge.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah, I guess.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I
all
wasn't
right.
there.
I thought you were. I thought that's why we were talking about this.
Yep. I'm a time traveler, as it turns out.
That's a different genre.
Oh yeah, that's a whole nother episode that I'm planning. It's pretty easy to see how this trial dragged on for several days because a total of 55 witnesses were called. And yeah, it was just a little bit frustrating for everyone involved because they all had conflicting accounts of what happened. Catherine Ring and Hope Sands both testified that Elma left the boarding house with Levi the night she disappeared. But on cross-examination, they both conceded that they didn't actually see the two leave together and they only heard Levi's voice in the lobby. Meanwhile, several witnesses testified that they saw Elma that night riding in a one-horse sleigh, which I had a really hard time reading it without hearing
baby.
Christmas songs.
Yeah.
But it was December, and that's how people got around. So supposedly she was seen with two men in this sleigh, and it was a sleigh that resembled one that was owned by Ezra Weeks. But this whole time, Levi maintained that he had not seen Elma the evening that he disappeared. So in the end, the prosecution's case was entirely circumstantial. Meanwhile, the defense produced several witnesses who testified that Weeks was with his brother and friends at his brother's house for dinner all evening. And finally, at 2:30 a.m. on April 2nd, the defense finally decided they were done. They said, okay, we're going to rest now at 2:30 in the morning. To his credit, Hamilton opted not to give a closing statement. He was exhausted. The jury was exhausted. And he believed they'd proven their case.
Was he too tired
He
to
was.
rap?
He's like, you know what? I'm done. I can't. I got no rhymes left. There's nothing left in the tank. And possibly because it was 2:30 in the morning, or because there wasn't a whole lot of evidence against him, the jury only took 5 minutes to deliberate and find Weeks was not guilty. But the public, I know,
Wow.
right?
Wow.
5 minutes. But the public was convinced of his guilt, and Weeks was pretty much ostracized by New Yorkers until he was forced to leave the city and resettle in Mississippi.
Was he tarred and
I
feathered?
don't think so. I think he was just harassed.
Drawn and quartered.
I don't know if he encountered any, physical ramifications from this.
Taketh thine self out of our
Get
fair city.
Out of here. But I think one thing that I want to highlight is that more than 200 years later, the murder of Elma Sands remains unsolved.
All right, so Laura, thumbs up or thumbs down on Levi's guilt?
Ooh,
Like, what do you think? We can do this because it's, 2
Because it's
centuries
200
old,
years
so
ago.
I don't think we're going to hurt
Yeah.
anyone's.
Based on the trial transcripts and a lot of the inconsistencies, I don't think he did it. I think he maybe knew something, but it doesn't seem like he had any reason to kill her. And he had a
I think he put a hit out
pretty
on her.
airtight alibi. But I mean, yeah, who knows? He might have convinced his brother to get involved. Somebody else from the boarding house. One thing that I didn't bring up is there was a really dramatic moment during the trial that afterwards, both Hamilton and Burr took credit for doing this, so who knows if it even actually happened. But the story goes that one of them, in the late hours of cross-examining a witness who also lived at the boarding house, they say that one of them like held a candle up to his face and they were like, "We know it's you. Just tell us that you're the one who did it." And the guy's like, "I didn't do it." So that's pretty fun. But he didn't crack even with a candelabra in his face. So I don't know.
Man.
I'm surprised that nobody challenged him to a duel.
That's true.
Right?
Well,
Like, wouldn't that be?
Duels were...
That would have been a much different musical. Like, if it was Burr or Hamilton, totally different story.
And anybody who's seen the musical knows that duels were on their way out at that point.
Oh, so someone couldn't still demand satisfaction from
but
Mr.
people
Weeks?
weren't doing it as often anymore, and I don't think they were doing it in New York anymore.
It was not trending.
Yeah, it wasn't
trending.
cute anymore.
But for the murder trial of the century,
Yes.
I mean,
That was much more 1780s.
Exactly.
I think he
You
did
think
it.
he did it?
Yeah, just like Michael Peterson and Stephen Avery.
God, you're calling everybody out today. Wow.
once again, I think everybody is innocent.
Oh,
all the
Joe.
time. Don't come after us. We believe you. We believe in the criminal justice system, and we will mind our own business.
Yeah, I'm just kidding. Please, Kathleen Zellner frightens me.
As she
So,
should. She is a formidable attorney.
So,
If we could get her on the show, that would be super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's my true crime story for the day. We'll take a quick break, and when we come back, Joe will fill us in on a 7th Circuit case that sounds a lot like a murder mystery novel.
Artificial intelligence continues to reshape America's legal system. One sophisticated AI tool is QuickCheck Judicial, which analyzes multiple filings from a single matter, showing judges what cases you and your opponent did or did not cite. This gives judges greater insight into both sides' arguments. But what if you could gain that same insight using the same tool your judge has? Well, now you can. QuickCheck Judicial is coming later this summer. Be the first to see it. Visit tr.com/quick-check.
And we're back. Wow, what a refreshing break, right? So, Joe, why don't you tell us about this Agatha Christie murder case in the 7th Circuit?
So yeah, this is not a it's sort of a true crime, but I'm coming at it from the murder mystery genre. Like I said, I'm not really into true crime, but I do like to read murder mysteries. And one of the people I like to read is Agatha Christie. And in the 1961 book, The Pale Horse, there's this nefarious group of ne'er-do-wells who use black magic to kill people.
Gonna stop you right
stop
there,
you
Joe.
with ne'er-do-wells.
Oh, come on.
I know.
That's a
part
great
of me
word.
wasn't sure if
Are
you
you
were
kidding
doing
me?
it on purpose or if that was just you talking, and that fact made me laugh.
Like, am I consciously that dorky? Yes, I am consciously that dorky.
All right, carry on.
Okay. All right. So this group is supposedly practicing black magic on a small little English village, and they're using thallium, which is a rat poisoning, to murder people very slowly and without any trail
Oh, wow.
leading back to them. And they would have gotten away with it.
If it wasn't for these kids and their
except
dumb dog.
Yeah, if it wasn't for these kids. So anyway, this guy reads this story, apparently, really likes it, and then thinks to himself, I'm planning on murdering someone. I bet I could use thallium. It's brilliant, right? And
I watched Forensic Files. Thallium, like, it has more... It's been used for a lot of murders. I'm just saying. Like,
my
it's
God.
out there. It's trending.
yeah.
Trending.
So this used to be a rat poison that was actually widely used, and actually, Allie, because of that, like you can't use it as rat poisoning anymore.
Yep.
But this guy, I don't know where he got it, maybe on the dark web or something. He bought some thallium allegedly to use as rat poisoning. his argument was that just coincidentally his wife contaminated all of her food and not any of his food.
Sure.
Just completely by accident.
What are the chances?
Yeah, no, it was.
God,
it
I
was
kept trying to put
strange, but,
sriracha on this, and it just turned out to be rat poison. I don't know what happened.
Right, exactly. So it was a brilliant defense. The other thing that he did was write basically a poisoning manual, like he was going to write a book on how to poison people. And he actually did it. So that's probably not a great sign if you're being charged with attempted murder.
I love it
thank
when
goodness
they write a book.
If I did it.
This is how I
no.
would
Went
do
there.
it. Right. So yeah, so he's got a poison murder manual, and he was going to testify in his defense, right? But his attorney understandably said, "Look, the judge is going to allow all this evidence of your, poison murder manual and the fact that you threatened to kill your wife if she left you, and there's going to be a lot of bad stuff here. So let's just sit this one out," which is understandable. Like, that's good advice, right? So his whole thing on appeal was that his lawyer had provided ineffective counsel because he told the jury that at first he was going to testify in his defense and then took it back. The circuit wasn't having any of it. They said, look, this evidence is overwhelming. We don't need Hercule Poirot, or however you say his name. I don't know.
Poirot.
Ooh, Andy French.
There we go. There we go.
I like it. Anyway, he could take the day off on this one because this was a pretty open and shut case. They can test for thallium now. Not that any of our listeners would be interested in poisoning people, but if you were.
They can, but there's no antidote or cure, right? Like, once they have it in their system, they're like pretty much, if they have enough, it's lethal
I don't
every
know.
time. There's no right?
Well, maybe, but in this case, the wife did survive.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so she just didn't have enough.
might-
He
Didn't
didn't
Yeah,
something
yeah,
similar
that might
happen a couple years
Underdose.
ago with a woman
Yeah.
who wrote murder mystery novels, and then it turned out that she had been poisoned for several years? Am I making this up?
That sounds familiar.
Well, I feel like that was the show Murder, She Wrote, because it's like, it's this old lady.
Everyone dies around her. Why would you be friends with her?
Like, she was totally
Why would
guilty.
you be friends with her?
Yeah.
I know. I never understood that either. She's typing away there, and Joe the butcher is gone.
So anyway, this guy is in jail. We know not to take murder mystery novels too seriously.
Should have used Lily
Yeah.
of the Valley instead.
What is that? What's
Whoa.
That just
Am I the only one who watched Breaking Bad, I guess?
Yeah, I skipped that
Oh,
one.
I don't
No,
remember that
I didn't
part.
finish the series.
I did watch it, but I forgot that part.
We have that plant in my yard, and now after watching Breaking Bad, I stay away from it.
Were you planning on eating it before? Or were you-
It frightens me.
I think poisoning is just like such a diabolical way to go about it.
Well,
Like,
yeah, because it takes planning, and it's subtle, and not to make it sound like I think it's cool to poison people, but like,
Why do you guys think that, like, Laura, why do you like true crime stuff? Like, what is it so interesting about it to you?
yeah, well, and it's funny because I've had people ask me if going to law school is the reason why I like true crime, and I actually didn't take in any true crime entertainment until like a year after I left law school. I think for me, it's just kind of an interesting, I guess, character study of people and just what can lead people to end up in drastic situations.
Yeah, the sociology,
Yeah.
the psychology of it.
Yeah, I think so.
I like hearing about bad cops.
I know you do. Well, then, I mean, yeah, then in that case, definitely look up some of the stuff on like the serial killers from the 70s and 80s, because it's a lot of like, the victim ran out of Jeffrey Dahmer's house and said, "Please help me." And the cops were like, "Well, I guess he's fine."
I don't really like true crime, but I did watch that Mafia show on Netflix with Giuliani, and I did like that. So I don't know if that counts, but I do like hearing about the Mafia just because, they've got the code and they've got a certain like, twisted like ethics that they live by, and it's kind of interesting to see
Yeah.
like, how they justify the horrible stuff that they do. And then that was also, it was just kind of fun to hear about how they went after
Yeah.
the mafia. It was kind of like watching an episode of The Wire or something like that. Yeah, so I don't mind it, but I'm not really a big fan of it.
Okay, so we didn't quite convert you with this episode.
Well, we'll see. I don't know. I mean, no, I mean,
you.
the Hamilton and the Burr twist, kudos, because, yeah, I am interested in this case and I want to read more about it.
What about the angle, though, of like, I guess, so I'm drawn to true crime I've always been, even before I went to law school. And I probably in part because I'm just interested in like you said, Laura, like what brings people to this place? Like, how do they get there where they're making these decisions, or how are they driven to this? But then also as a lawyer, like I love the stories where where it's lawyer is hero, because we don't often get to be portrayed in that way. And sometimes it is like a lawyer at the root of this.
Yeah.
Somebody's been accused wrongly, and they're defending that client, and then the truth comes out to actually get justice for that family. But I think that that's also like wanting something to have a just result is just inherent in, being a lawyer. Like I mean, that's human too, but I feel like as a lawyer, you're really always fighting for that too. You want a fair outcome. So
You should watch Bluff City Law. If you feel that way.
oh boy.
I like that, Allie. We need all the help we can get. Everybody likes to rip on their lawyer until they need one, until they're falsely accused of a crime. So.
Well, and the system has to work. And lawyers are part of that accountability in making the system work.
Yeah, definitely. All right, well, that's all we have for today. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Fine Laws Don't Judge Me. Please rate and review our show wherever you listen to podcasts. And if there's a legal topic you'd like us to cover, please reach out to us at podcasts@tr.com. Thanks for listening. I'm going to take us so far from the real life of lawyering. You're not even going to know what podcast you're on anymore.
Oh my God, that's a segment. Time traveling lawyer.
Ooh.
Like a whole thing. It's happening.
Laura, are you mad that we've turned this into True Crime Mystery Science Theater 3000?
No, this is exactly what I wanted, actually.
Also a good show.
Yes. No, that's exactly what I wanted. Otherwise, it's just me, like, talking into a can for 20 minutes, and I don't want to do that.